Hey everybody, it's Thorn. Let's get started. You're going to start with a blank card. I got a pack of 50 of these at Michael's. And then with a pencil, you're just going to draw a circle. Once that's done, you're going to grab a really small detail brush. And with that small detail brush, you're just going to trace over that circle in a dark green color. I'm using the color dark green from the 100 Color Grabby palette, but you can use any palette just as long as it's a dark green color. Anyway, as you can see here, I'm just kind of tracing out the circle, but also filling it in a little bit, like making the sort of stencil for my wreath as I go along. That's what I prefer to do, just simpler steps, but you can fill out the circle first entirely and then make out your stencil for the wreath. As you can see here, I just kind of complete the rest of the circle and then go back and start filling in all the details. So there's kind of like 3-ish shapes that we're generally going to make for all of the kind of like branches and leaves of our wreath. So we're going to use mainly the tip of our detail brush and kind of just flick off little lines that are going to be either branches or stems of leaves. And when it comes to making the leaves, you're going to press down with the tip of your brush and then pull it back up and then do the same thing on the other side to make kind of like a bulb shape, and that's how you're going to get those bulbous leaf shapes. You're going to want to mix up the kind of 3 line shapes that you're making, so you're going to have some that flick off and then you're going to have some that are kind of curved branch lines, and you're going to make those kind of switch them up, kind of mix them up as you go around the circle to create your stencil for where your like pine needle type branches are going to go and where your more tree-esque branches are going to go. And on the tree-esque branches, that's where you're going to put your more bulbous leaf shapes. But you can also flick off to create tiny stem shapes that you can put those bulbous leaf shapes directly on. You can also mix up your leaf shapes. You can make heart-shaped leaves, kind of like flatter, more pointed leaves. For the flatter, more pointed leaves, I put those directly on the wreath circle by just kind of pressing the tip of my brush down and then pulling back towards the circle. Don't be afraid to go a little wild with it. You can make a bunch of like crisscrossing lines, you can flick out really far. You just want to give it kind of that full look. And so you're going to create like as many lines as you'd like, but also enough so that it's still like full and connected. Keep in mind that with smaller brushes, they hold less water, so you're probably going to have to refill quite a few times. So take your time with it. If you're not liking how something turns out, remember you can add more water to move the color around again, and you can also dry off your brush to absorb that color back into your brush. Once you've got the general shape of your wreath, you're going to start filling in all of the details just that little bit more. So you're going to make parts of the wreath thicker. You're going to add pointed leaf shapes by pressing down at the tip of your brush and pulling back in towards the circle. So you're going to start outside and then pull back in. You're also going to go to all of those places where you flicked off, and you're going to take the tip of your brush and you're going to very lightly flick towards the outside of that line. So you're going to start on where you made the line and flick out from the center there. When you get to the top of those lines, you're going to flick upwards, and then you're going to go back to flicking to the side with the tip of your brush, and that's how you're going to make those kind of pine tree needle-esque shapes. If you're finding that it's turning out to be a lighter green rather than a darker green, add more pigment, and if it's becoming too dark or you're adding like too much, you think, you can either dry it off with a paper towel. I have my lovely little paint rag there. Or you can use a palette and mix the ratios a little bit more. I don't use palettes, not really, so I can't really tell you like how to do that or show you, but whatever works for you. So I'm just gonna fast forward through the rest of the filling in process. You should be able to kind of just fill it in on your own and make your own shapes. You add your own, uniqueness to it. It doesn't have to look like mine. Mine doesn't even look like mine. Once you finished up your wreath, you're gonna wash off your brush and change it out for a red-brown color. You can make this by mixing up red and brown, but I'm using the color dark red from the Grabby palette. And to make your kind of mistletoe shapes, you're just gonna dot the tip of your paintbrush in the places that you want your mistletoe to be. Now I'm gonna fast forward through the rest of that so we can get to the next step. Once you finish placing all your mistletoe, you're gonna wash off your brush and grab a light brown color. You can make this by mixing a dark brown and white, or if you already have a light brown color, I'm using the shade Burnt Umber from the Grabby palette. And you're just gonna make little branches in between all of your mistletoe to connect them together. Now let's fast forward through that. You're just gonna use the tip of your brush to connect them all together. Once you've done that, I'm just going back in with that dark red color over those mistletoe and darkening them to make them stand out just a little bit more against the green. And just like that, you've got a holiday card. You can have whatever message you want.